Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Mark Helms, who's the founder and CEO of MH Solutions. Looking forward to hearing his story. He's got some great stuff to share. We've had a little conversation here offline before we started, and I just know there's some great stories here. Mark, why don't you start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and what you guys do.
Yes, John, thanks for having me on. I've started a business about 13 years ago. I've been in the communication broadband industry for about 18 years. Kind of started off in Akron, Ohio, just doing some survey work and migrated into some drafting and design and permitting over the course of those years. And it's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. I don't have a business background, kind of jumping jobs, longevity wise, before I started my company. And it's been fun to say the least because I've got to work with friends and family and meeting some new people and bringing them on. And a lot of people that I've met over the years didn't know that the industry that I'm in actually existed.
Mm.
Kind of talking to some people thought that, maybe these telephone poles and these utility pads just kind of popped out of the ground organically and and they weren't actually placed there. But um, so, you know, we started off with just a handful of people working in the industry doing survey work, and the industry started to boom with the introduction of fiber optics. It was already in the industry when I came into it, but it wasn't implemented the way that it is now, and leveraged the way that it is now with high-speed internet and broadband services. Well, a lot of that industry was in the copper, uh,
Mm.
kind of like the RF design and such. But with fiber optics, you get a much better uh, signal, a lot faster speeds. So we're focusing mostly on our fiber optic designs and permitting, and the industry has made some significant advancements in that department with small cells and delivery of just wireless data. So we've made some advancements in our industry and in my business specifically, and really still learning. You never stop learning because
Yeah.
there's always advancements in that technology. And I do like to bring people in that really don't know much about the industry, because I get a sense of joy watching people learn and grow. We have a comprehensive training program in our company here that kind of throws people into it and gets them excited about it. And they really drive my excitement, because I can at times you get a little burnt out. You know the industry, and you kind of want to take a step back, but then you see the beam in these individuals' eyes, and you get excited again.
Yeah.
So
So
uh
you're not the uh, the broadband provider, but you're laying the groundwork for the broadband providers. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's great. So we just do the survey work. We build the maps on a digitized form. Various different programs that are out there, GIS, Catapult, and other programs that we'll use to be able to build those maps. We build those maps, and then we do a file transfer into a digitized platform that we use to overlay a fiber optic design. And that design is basically the blueprint for construction to go and build it. of course, there's some other instances in there that we do. So we do the survey, the OSP, outside plant, building the maps. Then we'll do the design, and then the permitting aspect of it, which we have to get permission to attach to these poles and maybe run underground utilities for the Department of Transportation and
Right.
soil erosion, depending on where these facilities are or where this network's going to be planted. And so we do contract out the construction work of it, and we have construction partners. But the only thing that we do is basically do the documentation and building the blueprints for the network design.
So what you're saying is you don't just people don't just go out and start trenching and laying, cable.
That
There's a little
yeah.
bit of work ahead of time.
Oh yeah, that would be a mistake for sure. Just as a quick story here, in my old subdivision, my old neighborhood, all of our utilities were in the rear easement in the back. So all of between the power, the telephone, the cable TV, everything was in the rear easement. And then AT&T, which is essentially the OG of the industry,
Right.
they came along and they kind of do whatever they want. And they built their fiber to the home network in the front of everybody's homes. And they came in, and I'm sure there was some design and permitting aspect to what they did, although I wasn't involved with it. Uh, but our HOA put a stop order on AT&T because they were encroaching in on private property
Uh,
and because they weren't following an existing easement, which was in the
wow.
rear, and AT&T came through the front. And they ended up having to pull all of their fiber and conduit out of the ground, which is a lot harder than putting it in,
Yeah.
and had to follow the rules of that specific area, that subdivision. So it
Wow.
cost them
So
quite a bit of money.
one of your competitors did not do their proper planning, obviously, because
Yes, yeah,
I
I don't know who it was, but yeah, it was definitely a learning experience, I'm sure, for them, because that was a lot of hard work and digging that they had to do to rectify that situation. Yeah. So that's
yeah.
what we do. We'll make sure that we're following local municipalities and following existing easements. So a lot of the infrastructure is already built before we get out there. So we're
Yeah.
just basically following what other providers or utilities are already doing because they have an established easement that
Yeah.
we're allowed to be in.
Yeah, that's amazing that mistake was made. I think I told you I spent some time in utility business, and actually worked in the department where we had to deal with easements and maps
Yeah.
and plans and all that kind of stuff. And that's always been well known. Tell me a little bit about. There's an interesting story, I guess, kind of how you went from kind of doing some contract work to decide no, start your own business. How did that come about?
Oh, wow. So a lot of traveling was involved. There was a lot of traveling. I did a lot of learning on my own, kind of trial and error, and got a lot of feedback. I was blessed to have some mentors that have been in the business for decades and gave me some feedback on kind of how I was doing the surveys, and was intrigued on kind of interested in moving into the design aspect of it because I knew that the industry was changing, and there was going to be a lot more fiber than there was copper going to be laid in the coming years. So I knew that there was an opportunity for me to learn and grow with the industry. So I really just kind of dove in and found some organizations that would teach just the basic fundamentals. So learning the history of fiber optics and how that worked, and then being able to implement that into a design. And then the permitting came later, uh, because we were contracting that work out. We really didn't know much about permitting, and then we would use examples and follow examples of some work that was completed with the permitting aspect of it, which kind of was interesting because every municipality and every state can be different.
Yeah.
Um, the pole owners maybe
That
like
can
a,
be. They
yeah,
definitely are different, right?
yeah, they are. They like to do things a little bit differently in different states and different regions. So I know for me, being able to provide essentially a turnkey product, with the exception of construction, of course,
Yeah.
just the amount of overhead that comes in with construction never really filled my appetite. Like I just could not justify, the amount of capital that it would have taken to be able to implement the construction
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Well,
So,
yeah, but you're providing a service that probably a lot of those that don't do very well. Um, so
well, competition's tough,
yeah,
when you get into for what we do, which is the survey, permit and design aspect of it. There when I first started, I didn't know a lot of companies out there. I didn't see a lot of companies. I didn't interact with a lot of companies. I was really mostly focused in the Midwest, and I kind of knew which companies were out there. And working with larger design firms, like myself, kind of just getting familiar with the industry, and you know they really helped me and opened my eyes into seeing everything that it took to put a whole package together to be able to sell that product to either a provider or another design firm or a construction company. We're not always prime contract. Sometimes it's the construction companies that hold the prime contract with
right.
the providers. And really, we like to work prime with the providers, but it doesn't always work out that way because of the way the competition is out there.
Yeah.
Companies kind of just popping up out of the blue. Some say that they've been around for 10 years, but I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
And so, you kind of get familiar with those, and just recently kind of going through our marketing campaign, we've noticed a lot of these people that I've interacted with over the course of a decade and a half have bounced around from different companies. So
Yeah.
you're seeing the same name and you're working with the same people, but it's just in a different role in a different
Yeah.
company.
Different logo on the
Yeah.
plan. Yeah. So you mentioned competition. You said that it's been getting a little fierce lately, and
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't. I guess it doesn't take a genius to realize you drive around, you see utility work, you see stuff going on poles and going on the ground everywhere. I was just in West Virginia, and I don't know, they must have some big federal grant or something because uh, there for 4 days, I probably saw in a couple of counties area, I probably saw 20 plus trucks working,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're putting fiber in. I can't imagine doing anything but that. So it's just going. It seems like it's just happening all over the place. So
It is.
obviously
Yeah.
demand
So,
draws interest. Then that brings in competition. So it's a natural thing. So uh,
yeah.
what are you seeing, and how are you addressing that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest factors into this growth and competition has been some of the government funding that's happened over the last, I want to say 6 years or so, where they've allocated quite a bit of funds into driving this broadband initiative into more rural communities that don't have access to high speed internet.
Yeah,
When Starlink was first mentioned, you get into these small towns and they were just excited that fiber was coming to their town.
yeah,
And Starlink was their only hope, but it was still in its infancy. So, their Starlink is kind of growing, and they're constantly putting new satellites in the air, and that's essentially a competition for what our industry is doing.
yeah,
It still has to do with, data and bringing in high speed internet. And Starlink works great. However, there are some limitations. You can't get into a populated area and have enough bandwidth in order to support the amount of or the population for that area.
Oh yeah.
So fiber to the home or fiber to the premise, fiber to the business. There's a lot of, they call it FTTX, FTTB. It's just
Yeah.
it's all fiber to the location, and that brings in a much higher rate of speed for data, so they can actually, you go into a home of like say four or five, and everybody's on their phone or tablet, or they're streaming videos. That'd be difficult to do with a traditional RF or a fiber coax kind of hybrid,
Right.
because you don't get the same speeds as you do with fiber. Of course,
Yeah.
there are different pieces of equipment that you can do, that you can get to boost that signal, but at the same time, it's the fiber that really is the driving factor for that high speed internet. And the competition really with the government funds is they see the money.
Yeah.
The money's out there, so if they know the money is there, they're going to throw as much capital into that industry as they can, because they know that they'll make it back. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing, so for instance, there was a program that was launched. Boy, I don't know exactly when it was launched, but I got involved with it probably about 6 years ago. It's called the RDOF program, and it stands for Digital Opportunity Fund. And they threw about $20 billion into the industry to be able to, again, reach and branch out to these
Right.
more rural areas. And with that kind of funding, uh, people that were maybe thinking about getting in industry just decided to go for it, just get into it and
Yeah.
go for it. And, I don't know if there were business loans or whatever that kind of helped them or launched them into the forefront of being able to be a prime contract for a provider or construction firm. But there's a lot of good companies out there, but
Yeah.
there's also a lot of bad ones that
Yeah.
that I've noticed that, with our clients, they would branch out for the sake of maybe saving a little bit of money. They would try a
Right.
new company because they came in at a lower bid,
Sure.
but their quality and
They-
their experience wasn't there. So
yeah.
then what would happen is that, companies like mine who have had experience in the industry and a lot of success are now getting basically the leftovers of what these other companies weren't able to accomplish
Yeah.
at a much lower rate. And for me, it's never really been about the money, although we are a business and we do
Yeah.
like mega money, but it's always been the clients for me. If I take
Yeah.
care of my clients and I treat my employees well, we're successful.
Yeah.
And the communication with our clients is really what's kept, I think, our business alive, is because we're transparent, and I think our core values really speak a lot for our company. So
Yeah.
I'm not so much worried about the competition. I am worried more so for the providers and our clients that they're getting an adequate product.
Right. Well, we sometimes talk about whenever money comes in the industry, and whether it's because of government funding or whatever, we always worry about that. We call it the race to the bottom.
Yeah,
Because you get a lot of money, then you get people interested, and those people aren't necessarily at the same level of quality that
yeah,
want to do, but you have to match. They're often not assessing quality as much in these bids and things, and so that's a challenge we have, and I've faced that in a previous life, some of the stuff we
yeah.
did, and it was always a challenge.
Well,
Uh,
there's a whole nother aspect to that as well. Essentially we are a contract. We're a contracting group.
yeah,
We contract our work to providers or design firms or construction firms. And um, what's happening is, these newer companies are getting these bids because they're coming in at a lower rate, and they're
right,
promising, this work and this production, and they're not they're not meeting their goals, their
right,
deadlines, or their quality. And so then you see these firms are now trying to do more of an in-house approach where they're now hiring employees to do what companies like mine do to
Sure.
mitigate the, I guess, disaster of what these other companies have basically done to the industry. So we
Yeah.
kind of get a bad rep as a contract group, uh, because there are other contract groups out there that are inadequate or aren't
Yeah.
doing a good job. And again, there are plenty of good ones out there.
Oh, sure.
But and I cheer them on because I think competition's healthy and I think it's fun because we live in a big world.
Yeah.
We're not just, even though our company is focused here in the United States, a lot of these companies will go all over the world.
Right.
Even, Canada, Mexico, that's within our continent here, but it's, they'll go anywhere that the
Right.
work is there as long as the money supports it. But a lot of these companies are now hiring in-house, so it's harder for us to break into those design and providers because they're hiring a lot of their work in-house to train personally rather
Yeah.
than rely on someone that they just met or a company that maybe doesn't have the track record that we do.
Right. You mentioned kind of the word I would use, an abundance mentality about, you welcome competition, good competition, quality competition. Um, you also mentioned culture and your values. So talk a little bit about, the culture you're building at your company. You made a comment earlier when we were talking offline about titles. Uh, just tell me a little more about, the culture you're trying to build and what sets you apart.
Yeah, so the culture that I have, and it's been from the very beginning, and because I pride myself on the quality of it and produce and the numbers, you want to be able to produce to be able to meet deadlines. So the quality for me is something that I'm unwilling to sacrifice. And a lot of these other companies, they're looking for the bottom line, pushing out a
Right.
bunch of production and numbers, and so I really try to focus on the quality. Another aspect is the honesty. When you have an abundance of competition, um, it's easy to say, yes, we can, and we'll get it done, and then fall short. And then that
Yeah.
harms your reputation. And so even though your quality is there, maybe your production isn't there. So you have to be honest about who or what you can throw at a project.
Yeah.
So, we'll look at maybe we'll start it off with 50 field operations and then now we're down to like 15, but it fluctuates again because I've mentioned our comprehensive training program. And I personally, even though I'm a CEO, I do a lot of hands-on work with the training aspect of it because it is my business and I do want to make sure that our quality is met. And so we'll learn different techniques in terms of production. So we want to make sure that first off, our quality is there. Then we'll work on our production numbers. And then finally, just on our core values is not just the quality and the honesty and the communication, but it's also family because there is a work-life balance that you have to have. I've mentioned before when we talked that I did a lot of traveling. Because we're
Yeah.
working I might be my home base is here in Louisville, Kentucky, but we'll travel all over the country. We
Yeah.
just finished a project in Alaska, in Anchorage and Juneau, and
Wow.
that was an interesting project. Our fielders experienced a whole nother level to our industry because they weren't used to traveling that far.
Right.
But they did get some downtime. They got some playtime, and one of our fielders did actually bring their family and explored Alaska a little bit more because
Yeah.
otherwise they wouldn't have went. So
Right.
it was nice because when you do travel a lot and you have a family, it takes its toll on your family.
Yeah.
So you have to have that work-life balance, and that's one of our core values is yes, we want to be able to provide a quality product, and communicate with our clients. But if our employees are not happy and they're not getting the time that they need with their family, your take rate is down because they're not going to want to travel anymore.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've encountered is, a lot of our traveling team, they will get kind of burnt out. And so we allow them to set their own schedule, although we do prefer them to stay anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks at a time in the field. It just helps with the production numbers. But we completely understand that they have a family and they have to enjoy life in that aspect too, because I want them to be happy. I want
Yeah.
not just our clients to be happy, but I want our employees to be happy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, that's cool. And you've got a family as well. And I loved what you shared a story with me before about your daughters who are still young, and you're not stupid yet. You know that happens a few years from now. Just a warning. But but what one of your daughters said to you recently about you being a business owner?
Yeah, so my teenage daughter, she just turned 14, and I love talking to her about a lot of different aspects of life. She'll listen, and she likes to just take in the information. And one of the things that I encourage with my kids is ownership, being on top of their goals. What are your goals? What do you want to do in life? And one of the things that my oldest said is, she says she wants to be a business owner like me. And so I got a sense of pride out of that, and I and
Yeah.
I enjoyed that because before I got into this industry, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I think, being in being a freshman in high school, coming up, she just graduated middle school, but she's going into high school, and she's now really thinking about what it is that she wants to do. So, telling her to focus on her academics and making sure that math specifically is
Yeah.
one of her tougher subjects. And I've told her multiple times that math is one of the most important subjects, because that is across the board, for a lot of different business owners. It helps with, making bids and such. And she told me that she was proud of me. And when she said that, it kind of filled my heart, knowing
Yeah.
that, she's looking at me as, not just her dad, but also maybe just um, a guide in life, if you
Yeah.
will. I don't know. That's one of the part that's an important part of being a father, I think, for me, is, helping your kids. I hate to use the word training, but you really are training your kids to be
Yeah.
productive members of society. And hearing from them it just fills my heart. I don't get
Yeah.
that much from my 7-year-old though. She likes to talk a lot, so she's still
Yeah.
talking a lot. Not a whole lot of listening, but a lot of talking. And that she does let me know that I am dad first, business owner second. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like you got a pretty healthy balance. And my wife, who is a former math teacher, would be very proud of what you what you said there. And actually,
Yeah.
I'm a math guy too, so we both have a love for math. So
Well, I was a traveler. I was in the traveling. I did a lot of the traveling myself. That's
yeah,
how I was able to build my team. When you started off at a company with almost no capital, really you're working towards that capital to be able to build your team. So,
yeah,
throwing a lot of your own earnings into building something. Um, and I think I mentioned already that it wasn't about the money for me. In the very beginning, of course, I like money. Who doesn't? It's
yeah,
such a common thing. It really is common. It doesn't seem to be easy to come by, but you work towards it. And
right,
um, when when I was traveling, it really did take a toll on my family. And
yeah,
that's the main reason I added that into my core values, is just making sure that, you know, I'm I'm being able to set some time aside for my family, because there was a lot of sacrifices, especially for my oldest. Now, my youngest hasn't really experienced a whole lot of me traveling, but my
right,
oldest has, and especially in her younger years. And
She appreciates the difference,
she
more.
does. She does appreciate the difference. It took a toll on me as much as
Yeah,
I'm sure that it took a toll on her, because there's a
sure.
lot of things that I missed out on, and the sacrifices that I made in order to build the business. And
Yeah,
so I don't do a whole lot of traveling now unless it is with the family. And on occasions I will, poke my head into to the field and kind of, try to step on my project manager's toes a little
yeah.
bit, but he'll put me back in my place and say, "Hey, let me do this. This is what you
Go,
hired me
go
for."
back home, boss. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So
So,
13 years in, that's astounding. That's, most, as most companies don't make it there. And I think you hit on something that, boy, a lot of um, people who are entrepreneurial minded don't get. There's a great statistic. I hear it thrown around a lot. Statistics are, I don't know exactly, how accurate it is, but it sounds true to me. That about 75% of people say they want to own their own business, but only 3% do. Uh,
yeah,
and and even when you look at the number, we always talk about numbers of small businesses. Most of the small businesses are like mine, one or two people, uh, and many of them are more hobbies. Mine's not a hobby, but many of them are just hobbies that somebody has a hobby they want to make a little extra money on. I've had those kind of businesses in my past as well. Uh, but if you really want to make a business real, uh, you have to kind of go through those early painful stages of playing every role, knowing it, doing all the different,
yeah,
hard tasks, uh, so that one, you figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at. So you hopefully you hire for the things that you're
yeah,
not good at. Also hire for the things you don't want to do. I mean, as the owner, you don't need to be out in the field. You don't, Alaska might be a cool trip for a week to kind of see the country, but you don't want to be up there for a couple of months probably.
yeah.
So uh, I guess you've already kind of said it, but what advice would you give to a new entrepreneur or somebody who's thinking about a business who kind of has this dream of, oh, business ownerships is sitting in your home office with your flag in your background, and boy, it's you're wearing your logo on your shirt. Boy, life is great, but reality, there's those early years that boy, so many people just can't make it through.
Yeah.
Uh, Talk
So,
about that a little bit.
yeah, okay. So for me, again, and I'll bring this back, this will be the third time I think I've said it, but you got to focus on the business. You don't really want to focus on the financial aspect, the money. Of course, you need the money in order to grow, but if you focus on the business, the money comes. It kind of just it falls into your lap in a sense, because you're working hard at making sure that what you're building is not only going to be profitable maybe in the long run, but it's sustainable.
Yeah.
So if you're focused on the money, then you're focused on the wrong things, because the money will come if you're good at what you do. If if you're not good at it, and I think that's probably what you just mentioned, is like maybe that's why the businesses kind of either they fail or they don't work out, is because maybe they're focused on the wrong things. Now that's different because the industry that I'm in is a service provider, a service is a service-based company. So I'm not selling, you know, retail stuff.
Right.
Not selling t-shirts and anything like that. Although you can buy those if you want. Um, but I focused mostly on the process. What
Yeah.
is it that makes a good product? This between the surveying, making sure that the surveying was accurate, and that when I turn that over to the client, that they're not going to be stunted by inaccurate information, because then that will then stunt your potential for maybe getting the next project. And so I would go again, travel and focus on doing the best that I can for my client. Because in the early years, it was just me. It was just me and a couple of people that were just doing the survey work. And then again, like I mentioned, I had migrated. So
Yeah.
really just learning the industry to the fullest extent. And I mentioned this before we got on, that it was I'm always learning. I'm always learning new aspects of the industry. And so if I'm educating myself on the industry, I know if it excites me and it gets me, intrigued in what it is that where the industry is going, what kind of technologies that you're using, programs that you're using, if they're interesting to me, then I kind of just I throw myself into it and I educate myself. Um, and it's always really worked out for me. And
Yeah.
again, I've never really focused on the financial aspect of it. Now, once you start to hire employees and you have an
It's a little
office
different, doesn't it?
and you've got a little bit more overhead, well, then that starts to come to the forefront a little bit more. So now that's
Well,
kind
you
of
start
the
thinking
front of
about
mind.
other people's families, right? Yeah, like
Exactly,
now
right.
I got to put food on their family,
Yeah.
their tables as well. Well, one of the worst advice I've ever heard people give, and I hear it every now and then, is follow your heart. And I always say, if you just follow your heart, then we'd all be either poor rock stars or out of work athletes, because that's what we all dreamed when we were kids, that's what we all dreamed of. But there is a a it's a like a Venn diagram of what your passion is. You can tell your passion. You talk about how you like to learn and everything. So you got that one. Then it's what you're good at. You need an overlap there. You got to be good at it, and you got to have a heart for it. But you can't stop there. You also have to have something that people need, that are willing to pay for. And
Right.
and
Yeah.
you stumbled. I mean, you kind of admitted you guys stumbled into this, but you
Yeah.
stumbled into an industry that was just about to take off like a rocket ship. And it's like, man, you give you the great timing award. You kind of hit on all three of those things: something you love doing, something you're good at doing, and also something people are willing to pay for. And
Yeah.
so congratulations on that. It's hard work. It's a lot of other things, but you can tell you enjoy it. And it's cool that you've built a nice business. And I think, I'm a believer in those that are in it for all the right reasons will prevail. You're going to have competition coming in, because
Well, there,
there's money right now in
yeah,
it, but
there is. Yes.
they'll
I
they'll
mean, there's a
also go
whole,
chase the dime somewhere else in three
yeah.
years or 5 years, and you'll still be there, serving your customers. And
Oh,
that's
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I dabble in other industries too. This isn't the only business that I own, but it's our main
yeah,
focus,
yeah,
because it seems to be that the industry is advancing, and there is a lot of money. Just for instance, there's another program called BEAD. It's the what is it? Broadband equity, access, and deployment. And so I had mentioned that the RDOF program threw $20 billion into the industry. Well, this program, this BEAD program, from my knowledge, was supposed to start 4 years ago. It was supposed to roll off the back of that RDOF and just
yeah.
continue to build the infrastructure to be able to service every American. And they're now implementing 40 billion
Wow.
into into this industry. And so you do again, you're seeing more and more companies come into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
It's
Mark,
like,
you might want to be quiet, because you might be, attracting more people.
you know what? So be it. It's, we're working hard to find new clients, and we're having some traction, and we do still have our own we still do have a client base that, you know, that I know is going to be there if we continue to follow our core values. And um, the other flip side to that, I just didn't know what I was going to do before I landed in this industry 18 years ago. So 2007 is when I started to when I jumped into it. I feel like I would have been good almost in any industry. For instance, like before I did this, I thought that I was going to be a mechanic. And I think that I would have been a good mechanic. And you mentioned,
Yeah,
is that a service that people need? I think
yeah.
so. Everybody, not everybody drives a car, but
Most
most
of us do.
most
Yeah,
people drive cars and they need to maintain those vehicles. But that industry has also changed,
yeah,
with electric vehicles and the computer systems. So you almost need to be an engineer not
Yeah.
necessarily a mechanic, because it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
And just like the automotive industry, this industry has also changed as well.
Yeah.
And, again, the competition is fine. I don't mind the competition. It's just weeding out the good with the bad.
Right.
You can see, you follow a lot of different people, maybe on LinkedIn, or you notice them in different trade shows or events, and you don't see the ones that are underbidding and doing a poor quality job. You only see the ones that are excited about the industry and are
Right.
focused on advancing the industry, which is kind of what we are.
Yeah.
And again, not chasing the dollar, but chasing the industry, making sure that we're up to date on the latest technologies. We're talking about implementing drones into what we do for our surveying aspect of it.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that you can do to advance your, I guess, your image. There might be another word for that, but you know, implementing different programs that maybe wouldn't have been utilized in this industry 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of 3D imagery that it's out there that you can use. And again, they're all subscription based. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to just flat out sell you their product anymore. Everything is subscription based. So before you know it, you have 5, 10 different subscriptions for programs that you might only use 5% of the time.
Yeah.
But maybe a client likes one program over another. So then you kind of have to keep that on the shelf so that you can implement that when the time comes.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it's been great hearing more of your story, getting to know you. It's awesome, really encouraging to hear someone who goes from doing tech work and contract work to basically 5 years to starting a business to now 13 years, successful business, and doing the right thing, doing it the right way. I find that inspiring. I know my listeners do as well. If they want to find out more about you or meet you or reach out to you, what's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. We've got our website, mhsolutionsllc.net. Check that out. We are going through a little bit of a image transformation, so our website is going to be updated here soon. So I'm looking
Cool.
forward to that. If you see me around, just say
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
I'm always looking to shake a hand and meet a smiling face.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks again for coming on the program and sharing your story and sharing some great words of wisdom for
All right.
uh, other business owners and future business owners.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.